Hello friends, today we are going to have a look at section 135 of Companies Act 2013, that is corporate social responsibility. Now this section is very interesting if we look at the other countries' Companies Act or their legislation related to company, because most of the government of other countries do not want their corporates to pay social responsibility corporate social responsibility amount as a mandate. Other countries want corporates to pay voluntarily, but in India the government has made it mandatory by inclusion of section 135 in the Companies Act 2013. This section was not part of 1956 Act also. Now we come to the section itself. So in subsection 1 it talks about the applicability, which you can see on the screen. Every company having net worth of rupees 500 crore or more. So the first condition, every company, and in rules it says every company including foreign company. So company may be of any type, but if these three conditions, there are three conditions are given, if these three conditions are met, then the company has to formulate a corporate social responsibility committee. So the first condition is net worth of rupees 500 crore or more. Second condition, the turnover of rupees 1000 crore, 1000 crore or more, or a net profit of 5 crore or more. And if you see, these are very big conditions. To my knowledge, not even 1% of the companies of India satisfy this criteria. Now, if any of these conditions are met by any company, then it shall constitute a corporate social responsibility of the board constituting at least 3 directors, and one of them shall be independent director, provided that is the first proviso, provided that where a company is not required to appoint an independent director under subsection 4 of section 149, it shall have a corporate social responsibility committee with 2 or more directors. Now, suppose that the company satisfies the criteria under subsection 1 of section 135, but it does not satisfy the criteria as given under subsection 4 of section 149, which is paid up share capital of 10 crore or more, or the turnover of 100 crore or more, or loan, deposits and borrowings from banks or public financial institution exceeding 50 crore. So company does not satisfy any of these 3 conditions, so it does not have to appoint independent director. But the criteria given under section 135 is altogether different, which is based on turnover, net worth, turnover and net profit. So if these 3 conditions are met, despite that the company is not required to appoint independent director, then the committee, CSR committee, shall be formulated, constituted without independent director, with at least 2 directors. Now come to subsection 2, which is very easy, that the board shall under subsection 3 of section 134 shall disclose the composition of the corporate social responsibility committee. Now what do we mean by composition? So company has to disclose the names of directors who are members of the committee, the chairperson, who is the chairperson, who is independent director if there are any, and such other matters. The corporate, now come to subsection 3, the corporate social responsibility committee shall. So now the subsection 3 talks about the role corporate social responsibility committee. So the role of corporate social responsibility constitute 3 elements. First, to formulate and recommend to the board a corporate social responsibility policy which shall indicate the activities to be undertaken by the company in the areas or subjects specified in Schedule 7. So now it is the responsibility of the corporate social responsibility committee to formulate a policy on CSR and recommend the same to the board for its approval. And the policy which is being formulated by the CSR committee shall be in compliance of the areas or subjects specified in Schedule 7. The second role is recommend the amount of expenditure to be incurred on the activities referred to in clause A. So under Schedule 7 they have made a policy, and under that policy they have to calculate an expenditure, that how much amount needs to be spent under this policy and in compliance with law, because we will see in further subsections of this section that law mandates a certain amount of minimum amount of expenditure which needs to be spent by corporate. So the corporate social responsibility committee would also, CSR committee would also calculate the amount of expenditure and recommend it to the board. And the third, monitor the CSR policy of the company from the time to time. So the third responsibility is that they have to constantly monitor the CSR policy and has to propose change. So they cannot change the policy on their own. They have to recommend any change when required to the board. So they have responsibility to monitor, and if they found there are some changes required within the policy, they will recommend to the board such changes, and it will be approved by them accordingly. Now come to the board. There are some roles of board also under law with respect to CSR. So the subsection 4 reads as, the board of every company referred to in subsection 1 shall, after taking into account the recommendations made by the corporate social responsibility committee, approve the corporate social responsibility policy for the company and disclose contents of such policy in its report, and also place it on the website if any, in such manner as may be prescribed. So there are multiple roles given under clause A of subsection 4. First, they have to approve the corporate social responsibility policy, CSR policy, which is recommended by the CSR committee. Now after approval of such policy, they have to disclose it in the board's report, and if company owns any website, then it shall also be disclosed on its website in such manner as may be prescribed. So there is a separate rule on this disclosure part. The second function is ensure that activities as are included in corporate social responsibility policy of the company are undertaken by the company. It is the responsibility of the board to ensure that the activities that are included in the policy which they have approved it, recommended by the CSR committee, shall be followed accordingly. Subsection 5. Now it is regarding the amount that needs to be expended as a part of CSR. So it reads, The board of every company referred to in subsection 1 shall ensure that the company spends in every financial year at least 2% of the average net profit of the company made during 3 immediately preceding financial years. So, a company has to spend in every financial year at least 2% of the average net profit of immediately preceding 3 financial years. So suppose now we are standing in the financial year 22-23. If the profit of my last year, which is 21-22, is 5 crore or more, or the turnover of 21-22 is 1000 crore or more, or the net worth is 500 crore or more, then I will have to calculate 2% of the average net profit of the preceding 3 financial year, which means 21-22, 2021 and 19-20. These 3 years I will have to take average net profit and then take 2% which needs to be spent under CSR this year. Or where the company has not completed a period of 3 years since its incorporation during such immediately preceding financial years. So suppose my company is incorporated just last year. It was the first year and my company met the criteria, or it was just incorporated last year, but my company met the criteria. So the law says average net profit of immediately preceding 3 financial year, but my company hasn't been incorporated since 3 financial year. So the law says take the average of those years for which the company was in existence. Now we come to first proviso. Provided that a company shall give preference to local area and areas around it where it operates for spending the amount earned for corporate social responsibility activities. So, if this proviso is recommendatory in nature, it is not mandatory, because it says company has to spend the amount of CSR around the areas where it operates. So the company has its registered office in Mumbai, then it will have to spend it in Mumbai. If company having a registered office in Mumbai has its plant for manufacturing in suppose Kolkata, then it has to spend also in Kolkata around it. And if it also has an administrative office in Gujarat, then it has to spend also around the area where it has administrative office in Gujarat. Now, if these 3 places are, if the board thinks that they have spent enough amount of money around the areas where it operates, then they can go to other places as well. The second proviso provided further that if a company fails to spend such amount, the board shall, in its report made under clause O of subsection 3 of section 134, specify the reasons for not spending the amount. So if the company is unable to spend the amount under CSR during the financial year, it shall give the reasons for not spending such amount. And if now there are 2 parts for which the company does not spend amount. First, the company has the directors and officers of the company were negligent about the expenditure and they did not spend. In that case, the company has to deposit such amount to any fund specified in Schedule VII within 6 months from the end of relevant financial year. And the company does not spend amount because it has some future projects related to that expenditure. So in that case, company has to company has to deposit that amount to a separate bank account called CSR unspent account, and company can utilize that amount for 3 financial years. Suppose the company fails to utilize such amount deposited in separate bank account within 3 years, then the company has to deposit such amount to any fund specified in Schedule 7 within 1 month from the end of financial year, third financial year, from the end of third financial year. So that was about the third proviso is also covered. The explanation is given for the purpose of this section, the net profit shall not include such sums as may be prescribed and shall be calculated in accordance with provisions of 198. So net profit, there is a manner given for calculation of net profit, because one of the criteria for determining net profit was section 1. One of the criteria is that 5 crore or more profit company would be enforced with the provisions of section 135, and if we calculate the amount of expenditure needs to be spent under CSR, then we also have to take a net profit of immediately preceding average net profit of immediately preceding 3 financial years. So what is the net profit that they have defined? And lastly, recently the amendment had came in, I think 2021, which said that if the company has received any amount of dividend from company who is also on whose section 135 is also applicable, then such amount of dividend shall not be included in section 190 for calculation of net profit for CSR purpose. Now let me explain by example. Suppose section 198, suppose there is A limited and B limited. A limited is holding 50% of the shares of B limited. Both the companies have net profit of 10 crore. So both the companies would be spending CSR expenditure under section 135. But calculate the dividend would be paid out of the profit of B limited to A limited, and on the same amount of profit B limited has also already made an expenditure of 2%. That profit will go to A limited. In A limited will exclude that amount of dividend for calculation of net profit, because government doesn't want to repeatedly pay same amount of profit to CSR. Although this provision was created in 2013, and since then up to I think 2020 or 2021, the provisions all just said that they had to expend 2% of average net profit of the 3 financial years without any exclusions. So it was a difficulty then, but now it is not. Subsection 6. That we have already taken. And subsection 7 talks about the penalty clause, which was not earlier in that was also inserted as an amendment. It was not part of original act. So it says, if a company is in default in complying with the provisions of subsection 5 or 6 The company shall be liable to penalty twice the amount required to be transferred by the company to funds specified in Schedule VII or unspent corporate social responsibility account as the case may be, or 1 crore rupees, whichever is less. So if company is in default, then company has to pay penalty of twice the amount. And as we have seen, there could be two type of unspent amount. One, due to negligence, and two, due to future projects, but also on future projects due to some reason they could not spend within 3 years. So in that case, the amount need to be transferred to specified fund. In both the cases, if they do not deposit such amount within 6 months or 1 month as the case may be, then the penalty would be levied. How much amount needs to be transferred to any fund specified in Schedule VII? Twice the amount of amount needs to be transferred in fund specified in Schedule VII, or 1 crore, whichever is less. The officers are also liable for the penalty in that case. Then every officer of a company who is in default shall be liable to penalty of 1/10 of the amount required to be transferred by the company to such fund specified in Schedule VII or the unspent corporate social responsibility account. Unspent corporate social responsibility account, as the case may be, or 2 lakh rupees, whichever is less. The central government may give such general or special directions to company or class of companies as it considers necessary to ensure compliance of provisions of section, and such company or class of companies shall comply with such directions. The amount to be spent by a company under subsection 5 goes not exceeds 50 lakh rupees, or requirement under subsection 1 for constitution of corporate social responsibility shall not be applicable. So in that case, the exemption has been given to those companies whose CSR expenditure does not exceed 50 lakh rupees. That means it can be up to 50 lakh rupees. So in that case, they do not require any such corporate social responsibility. They have to spend amount under CSR, and that's it.